going to look at this. Let's take a look here. So you've got the form a little bit here. Tell us a little bit about what you were thinking when you guys created this particular test.
As part of the website feedback that we were receiving, some of the feedback was around the gates. And some of the feedback specifically referenced that they didn't want to submit a gate to get a free trial. They didn't want to complete a gate to get this asset, that asset, because they felt once they provided that information, they were going to be put on a list and be essentially continually harassed by our sales teams, by our resellers. And we turned up at their house trying to sell them. We'd continually harass them and chase them down until they've purchased our product, which isn't necessarily the case. In this case, with our quotes, where we would contact them, there was no harassment involved. The contact that they would receive was purely for getting the details of what products they were looking for, the solutions, and creating that custom quote, since our licensing wasn't as simple as a single price point. Perfect.
So here you've got a form, you've got request to quote. You've identified that there was a pain point, right, from the audience based on the feedback. So what do? You're trying to address that pain point right then and there. And something happens. And really what goes from that is, basically, as you move forward, you're going to get the results here, and it says 19% decrease. Uh-oh, what happened?
Yeah. I wasn't expecting this one. At the very least, I was expecting no change, because perhaps the fear and the anxiety that some of our users were experiencing was perhaps irrational, that they felt that we were going to harass them, we were never going to leave them alone until they purchased our product. Yet here I was, or the website, saying, no, we promise, we won't harass you. So clearly that the audience that were experiencing that anxiety weren't necessarily going to be swayed by the people they felt were going to harass them, promising that they won't harass them. So that was, my expectation was at least no change. Yet in this case, I actually saw almost a 20% decrease. And this confused me for a little bit, in that what I ended up, our hypothesis ended up being that while we had potentially no change to those visitors who had that anxiety around being harassed, what it did do was, for the prospects who originally weren't even thinking about that, now here we were calling it out. So if some people weren't before thinking about being harassed, some of them were now potentially, oh, they're right, maybe I will get harassed. Okay, maybe I won't submit this form. So it was a good learning, and actually what we ended up doing was following up with one of our, the original blogger that we identified, and through a quick phone conversation with him, we ended up understanding that the anxiety was rooted specifically in providing a phone number. The harassment that they were expecting to receive, their anxiety was around that over a phone call. So what we want to actually end up doing is ensuring that the phone number on our forms, it's optional. We can still provide a quote via email, and there's very little anxiety that we heard through providing an email. It was really routed in a phone call. So our next step following this test was to move ahead to try and make our phone numbers optional on our form.
Interesting point that I think we can all take a lesson from here. Took the right idea, right, about that pain point that they had, wasn't applied to the right concept, right? It was the phone number, not the email. So you got to think about that. The other thing you notice about is, and we've talked about this all week, is sequence, right? The thought sequence. We think about the call to action sequence. We think about the content sequence. It has to be in the right sequence. If it's out of sequence, you're going to find issues. And this is a perfect example of something that's not in the right way it should be, even though it was the right idea. So I could see where it was a little bit of troubling.